Hierro können Sie diese Medaille bitte geben?
Ja.
Danke.
Gibst du die Lecce?
Ja.
Oh, okay.
Jetzt. Johannes, kannst du Karten spielen?
Interessant.
Ja, du kannst gut spielen. Hast du ein Karten da? Okay, ja.
Nicht so gut.
Ja, okay. Welcher Text heute? Okay, ich kann das schreiben, ist okay. Hare Krishna, dear devotees. So today's lecture originally was scheduled that we would hear by His Grace Krishna Premarupa Prabhu, but unfortunately Krishna Premarupa Prabhu is sick. So because of that unfortunate circumstance, unfortunately, I jump in. Jai Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Jaya Gopi Jana Vallabha Girivaradhari Jaya Gopi Jana Vallabha Girivaradhari Yasodanandana Braja Janaranjana Yasodanandana Braja Janaranjana Jamuna Jamuna Jai Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Jai Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Premanande Hari Hari Bol. Jag Vishnupada Paramahamsa Parivrajkacharya Ashto Saraswata Srimad Abhacharna Ravinda Bhakti Vedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada Ki, ISKCON BBT Founder Acharya Jagat Guru Srila Prabhupada Ki, Vrinda Devi Tulasi Maharani Ki, Grantaraj Srimad Bhagavatam Ki, Ananta Koti Vaishnav Vrinda Ki, Nitai Gaur Sitanath Premanande Hari Hari Bol. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to Shri Guru and Shri Gauranga. All glories to Srila Prabhupada. Nama Om Vishnu Padaya Krishna Pristhaya Bhutale Srimate Bhakti Vedanta Swami Niti Namine Namaste Saraswate Devi Gauravani Pracharine Nirvishesha Shunyavadi Paschate Desatarine Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Hare Krishna, dear devotees. So today we are reading from Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 4, Chapter 29, Text 80. The chapter is entitled Talks Between Narada and King Prachina Barhi. So we don't have the text on the board, so you can just repeat the words after me and then I recite the verse. Maitreya Uvacha Bhagavata Mukhyo Bhagavan Narado Hamsayor Gatim Pradarshya Hi Amum Amantriya Siddha Lokam Tato Kamat. So I don't know, Rasagya Mataji, you can find out text 80, Canto 4, Chapter 29, text 80. So if you write SB 4.29.80, you will have the verse. Then maybe we can also recite. Dino Prabhu, Sie haben das gefunden, ja?
Ich hab's gefunden.
Okay. Und Johannes, du kannst auch schauen. Da.
Mit wem?
Zusammen, ja. 4.29.80. Let me know when you have it and then we can recite together. 29. Text 80. 80. Never mind, you try till then we start reciting. Take your time. So, yeah, Canto 4, Chapter 29, Text 80. Maitreya Uvacha Bhagavata Mukhyo Bhagavan Bhagavata Mukhyo Bhagavan Narado Hamsayor Gatim Narado Hamsayor Gatim Pradirshya himam amantriya Siddha lokam tato gama Maitreya uvacha Bhagavata mukhyo bhagavan Narado hamsayor gatim Pradarshya hi amum amantriya Siddha lokam tato gama. Would anyone like to chant?
Maitreya Uvacha.
Maitreya Uvacha.
Bhagavata Mukhyo Bhagavan.
Bhagavata Mukhyo Bhagavan.
Narado Hamsayo Natim.
Narado Hamsayo Natim.
Dadashya hi amum amantriya.
Radhashi Amam Amantriya.
Siddhalokam tato gama.
Siddhalokam tato gama.
Maitreya Uvacha.
Maitreya Uvacha.
Bhagavata Mukhyo Bhagavan.
Bhagavata Mukhyo Bhagavan.
Narado Hamsayo Gatim.
Narado Hamsayo Gatim.
Pradarshya hi amum amantriya.
Pradarshya hi amum amantriya.
Siddhalokam tato gama.
Siddhalokam tato gama. Mataji's? Oh, okay. Thank you. So we do the word by word meaning. Maitreya Uvacha. Maitreya said. Bhagavata. Bhagavata of the devotees. Mukhyaha, the chief. Bhagavan, the most powerful. Naradaha, Narad Muni. Hamsayoho, of the living entity and the Lord. Gatim, constitutional position. Pradarshya, having shown. He, certainly. Amum, him, the king. Amantriya, after inviting. Siddhalokam, to Siddhaloka. Tataha, thereafter. Agamat, departed. Translation and purport by His Divine Grace Abhay Charana Ravinda Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. So the translation reads as follows. The great sage Maitreya continued. The supreme devotee, the great saint Narada, thus explained to King Prachina Barhi the constitutional position of the Supreme Personality of Godhead and the living entity. After giving an invitation to the king, Narada Muni left to Siddhaloka. Purport. Siddhaloka and Brahmaloka are both within the same planetary system. Brahmaloka is understood to be the highest planet within this universe. Siddhaloka is considered to be one of the satellites of Brahmaloka. The inhabitants of Siddhaloka have all powers of yogic mysticism. From this verse, it appears that the great sage Narada is an inhabitant of Siddhaloka, although he travels to all planetary systems. All the residents of Siddhaloka are spacemen, and they can travel in space without mechanical help. The residents of Siddhaloka can go from one planet to another individually by virtue of their yogic perfection. After giving instructions to the great king Prachina Barhi, Narada Muni departed and also invited him to Siddhaloka. Om Jnanatimirandhasya Jnananjanashalakya Chakshurmilitam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namah Shri Chaitanya Manobhishtam Stapitam Yena Bhutale Swayam Rupa Kadamayam Dadati Swapadantikam Vandeham Shri Guru Shri Juta Padakamalam Shri Gurum Vaishnavamscha Shri Rupam Sagrajatam Sahagana Raghunathanvitam Tam Sajivam Sadvaitam Savadhutam Parijana Sahitam Shri Krishna Chaitanya Devam Shri Radha Krishna Padam Sahagana Lalita Shri Vishakha Tamscha Namam Vishnupadaya Krishna Prishthaya Bhutale Srimate Bhaktivedanta Swami Niti Namane Namaste Saraswati Deve Gauravani Pracharane Nirvishesha Shunyavadi Paschatya Desatharane Vancha kalpatarubhyascha kripa sindhubhya cha patitanam pavanebhyo vaishnavebhyo namo namaha. Panchatattvatmakam Krishnam Bhaktarupa Swarupakam Bhaktyavataram Bhaktakyam Namami Bhakta Shaktikam. Namo Mahavadanyaya Krishna Prema Pradayate Krishnaya Krishna Chaitanya Namne Gaura Tvishe Namaha. Nilachala Nivasaya Nityaya Paramatmane Balabhadra Subhadrabhyam Jagannathaya Te Namaha. He Krishna Karuna Sindhu Dinabandhu Jagatpate Gopesha Gopika Kanta Radha Kanta Namastute. Tapta Kanchana Gaurangi Radhe Vrindavaneshwari Vrishabhanu Sute Devi Pranamami Hari Priye. Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shivasadi Gaur Bhakta Vrinda. Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare. The text and translation once again. Maitra Vacha Bhagavata Mukhyo Bhagavan Naradoham Sayurgatim Pradarshyahi Mamantrya Siddhalokam Tato Gamat. The great sage Maitreya continued. The supreme devotee, the great saint Narada, thus explained to King Prachina Barhi the constitutional position of the Supreme Personality of Godhead and the living entity. After giving an invitation to the king, Narad Muni left to return to Siddhaloka. Hare Krishna, dear devotees. Thank you very much for being present here, and before I begin to render this service, I would humbly seek the blessings of all assembled Vaishnavas and the senior devotees so that I may be able to perform this devotional service primarily for my own purification. So it's a very short purport that Srila Prabhupada gives, and it's mostly about Siddhaloka. And Srila Prabhupada says how, because we know that there are these 14 planetary systems, and we have the upper planetary systems and the lower planetary systems, and this earth realm. Oh, and I must say, if I speak too fast, you can please stop me and let me know. So, and this earthly planetary system, the Bhuloka, is kind of in the middle. And the upper planetary systems that are there, Srila Prabhupada quotes in his lecture very significantly that the material creation of the Lord is only 1/4 manifestation of Krishna's manifestations. It's like such a tiny bit of the manifestation. And here Prabhupada gives us this vision of how, of course, for us, this is like spiritual geography, and in school we have a very different understanding of what the planetary systems are like and geography is like. But Srila Prabhupada gives us an insight based on Shastra. And it is said in Sri Chaitanya Charitamrita, Shadhu Shastra Chitite Kuriya Aikya, so that the words of the spiritual master, of the saintly person, we should carve it or engrave it in our hearts. So similarly, Prabhupada gives us this insight of how the highest planetary system within this universe is the Brahmaloka. And our universe is as tiny as a mustard seed. That's how insignificant our universe is. But in our universe, the highest planet is the Brahmaloka. And Siddhaloka is like a satellite. For example, Earth is there and the satellite is the moon, right? Yesterday on Instagram, I was watching a video of how the moon goes around the Earth and creates tidal waves. So you could really see, it was a overview of how the water moves around the Earth. So similarly, the Siddhaloka is a satellite of Brahmaloka, like the moon is the satellite for the Earth. And the Siddhaloka is one of the satellites. It's perhaps not the only satellite. And for example, the materialistic or the incomplete understanding of the moon is that there is no life. But Srila Prabhupada, that's why clarifies here that the Siddha Loka is actually inhabited. There are individuals living there. And what kind of individuals are living there? The Siddhas. And what does Siddha mean? Siddha is the Siddhi means the power of a yogi. That's a Siddhi. Means you attain something. So after a lot of austerity and a lot of tapasya, individuals attain mystic powers. For example, when you go to Kumbh Mela, which happens during the winter times, or towards the end of the winter times in India, and Kumbh Mela generally happens in North India, you will see a lot of sages gather there which have attained mystic powers. They can rise above their seat without a help, just through mystic powers. Then they can turn something into ashes. So I don't know if any one of you have had some experience like that. But then in the Kumbh Mela, there are these sages who have these siddhis. And this is only as much as we know. But then there are also some sages who maybe don't even turn up at the Kumbh Mela, So this yogic practices, Ashtanga Yoga, Hatha Yoga, can really help one control the senses and transcend beyond the ordinary capability of the human body. And therefore, you attain siddhis, or you have these achievements, which are powers of yogic mysticism, like Srila Prabhupada calls it. And the inhabitants of Siddha Loka have these siddhis, and therefore they are also qualified to live in Siddha Loka. And from this verse, Prabhupada also points out, it is evident that Narad Muni is also an inhabitant of Siddha Loka. And of course we know that Narad Muni is a very special personality. And I know Sundar Jagannath Prabhu, once in his lecture, he was saying how Narad Muni is the transcendental spaceman. And in the purport, Srila Prabhupada says, all the residents of Siddha Loka are spacemen. Means that they can travel. They don't need an airplane to travel or a train to travel. They can just desire and travel wherever they want. And Narad Muni therefore has, he can travel without any mechanical help. He doesn't need any vehicle to travel. And Narad Muni therefore has a very special role in Srimad Bhagavatam and all scriptures actually. Because, whenever there is a moment of crisis, Narad Muni just appears. For example, when Kamsa was killing all the kids of Devaki, all the babies of Devaki, Narad Muni just appeared and gave him the advice that you don't have to kill all of them, just kill the 8th child. And then Dhruva went to the forest and he was performing austerity, and suddenly Narad Muni just appeared there. Anyone else remembers where Narad Muni just randomly appeared? Any examples you remember that Narad Muni just showed up? There are many examples in the scriptures.
There is a story with the swing, no? From Radha Krishna. Narada Muni appeared.
Yes.
I can't remember the story.
Okay, yeah, there is a swing story. Okay. There are a few swing stories. I'm not sure which one. But yeah, that's the quality of Narad Muni, that he just suddenly appears in places. And he has a very significant role even in the Mahabharata, and whichever scriptures you look at, Narad Muni just suddenly appears. And so this is his power of mysticism. And Narad Muni has a very important role in all pastimes of Krishna. And why? It is because Narad Muni is one of the dearmost devotees of Lord Krishna. So here what is very significant, which I thought we could really meditate upon in this verse, is this last part. Because this is now a conversation between Narad Muni and King Prachina Barhi. And in the previous chapters in this Canto 4, we are really seeing that one very prominent theme is the Guru-disciple relationship. Because in Canto 4, first we had Narad Muni and Dhruva. Again, a very good example of Guru-disciple relationship. Then there is Prithu Maharaj, who was an ideal king, ideal disciple, and then when he was having this fight against Indra, I think it was, if I'm not wrong, Brahma who told him to stop fighting. And just because it came from a higher authority, he stopped. And now we have the story of King Prachina Bharhi and Narada Muni. So somehow one can also feel that Canto 4 very significantly can solidify our understanding of Guru-disciple relationship. And we see, if we really look at the story of King Prachina Bharhi or King Prachina Bharishad, he was an ordinary, not an ordinary, but a special yet a king who was very saintly but was involved in materialistic activities. And then, through the form of a story, soft talk, let's say, Narada Muni is transforming his heart. And we see the whole transformation of King Prachina Bharhi through the story of Puranjana, right? He reveals the story of Puranjana and all the difficulty Puranjana goes through, how he's attracted to Puranjani, and then he has the whole trouble of material suffering. And now, it's kind of coming to the culmination, to the climax. We see that Prachina Bharhi is gradually understanding the subject matter. He has understood how in the material world we can only suffer, and what we may enjoy is actually cessation of suffering. And even in some previous verses we have been discussing how service to the spiritual master and to the Lord is the samam bonum. And here ultimately Narada Muni gives him the invitation to come to Siddhaloka, his own planet. And when I read this, I was just reflecting now on how this also very much reflects on the guru-disciple relationship for us on a personal level. So one may think that, oh, I do not have a guru, but Srila Prabhupada, as soon as you take shelter of ISKCON, or even if you link yourself, and you do not even actually have to formally label yourself as an ISKCON member, but as soon as you take or you acknowledge Srila Prabhupada's presence, you are under his shelter. That's his mercy. So there is this one story to just slightly elucidate on Srila Prabhupada's mercy. It was, I think, in Germany. Srila Prabhupada was driving through the roads, and that it was soon after the war. So there was a lot of suffering around after the war in Germany. And there was the East Germany, West Germany. So there was this divide. And okay, maybe the rich class were not suffering so much, but the middle class and the poverty-stricken were really suffering. There was a lot of impoverishment, lack of resources. And then the car was driving by, if I remember the story correctly, and Srila Prabhupada noticed all these individuals just standing there, suffering and in impoverished conditions, waiting, I think, to get some food or something. And the devotee next to Srila Prabhupada noticed that Srila Prabhupada was shedding tears. And for me that story is very moving, because these were not, let's say, quote-unquote formal disciples or grand disciples of Srila Prabhupada, but he had so much compassion for the living entities, and Prabhupada said how much they are suffering and how it is our duty to relieve them. So we see that Narada Muni had received instructions from his spiritual master, and now he's instructing King Prachina Bharhi and inviting him to Siddhaloka. So 2 points I was thinking in the next 10 to 15 minutes we can really meditate upon is how following the footsteps of the spiritual master leads us back to Krishna, to the same planet. And second is how we actually have a debt to the spiritual master, and we have to increase our debt to the spiritual master. So these two conceptions, I thought that we could really take home as a lesson from this verse. Jai Shri Jagannath Baladev Subhadra Maharani ki Jai. Jai Shri Shri Gaur Nitai ki Jai. Srila Prabhupada ki Jai. Ananta Koti Vaishnav Vrinda ki Jai. Gaur Premanande Hari Hari Gaur. So yes, the spiritual master, and for those of us who do not personally maybe have initiated ourselves in the shelter of a spiritual master, for Srila Prabhupada, we see that these personalities are instructing spiritual masters. They come into our lives, and they give us instruction, they really show us a way of living. And then at some point they depart. And then what is the duty of the disciple then? For example, some of us may say that, how am I a disciple of Srila Prabhupada? I do not have his personal association, but we have the instructions of Srila Prabhupada. And at one point the spiritual master departs, and what we are left with is the instruction. It is said that a sincerity of the disciple, a sincere disciple, and how can one recognize a sincere disciple? That one who is able to follow the instructions of the spiritual master even more convincingly, and follows the instruction as heart and soul even after the departure of the spiritual master. Such a disciple is a true disciple. So we see that we receive instructions during the lifetime of the spiritual master, whether it may be through personal association or through written instructions, through books. But at some point we get this, we are separated from the spiritual master, and we get an invitation to then follow in his footsteps. It is said, Mahajena Gatha Sapantha. So I asked once Kadamba Kanan Maharaj about this question, also another exemplary personality, about he was in Radhadesh. It was in the year 2021, I suppose. And then I asked him this, what does it mean to follow the footsteps? And he said that following the footstep doesn't mean that we imitate, but we follow the instructions, we follow the principles that are laid down by the spiritual master. And then our path to the spiritual world is secure. Srila Prabhupada said that you only follow the 4 regulative principles, you chant your 16 rounds, and you read the Bhagavad Gita. Do these things daily, and I guarantee that your way back to Godhead. So Srila Prabhupada has really carved our way back to Godhead. So it is our utmost fortune. And therefore, because we have received the greatest gift through our spiritual master, through Srila Prabhupada, it is also our duty, therefore, to spread the holy name. And why do I say that? Actually, it's a whole calculation. His Holiness Krishna Chaitanya Maharaj, in his recent Vyasa Puja address, he mentioned how when we receive, the gift we receive from the spiritual master and from Srila Prabhupada is the biggest gift we can hope for. And for example, when you receive something from somebody, there is gratitude, right? Kritagya. Kritagya means that, because of Krita means doing, and Gya, so I acknowledge what you do. So when I acknowledge what you do, I become grateful. So when we receive the highest form of knowledge, highest form of benediction, benefit of human existence from our spiritual master, we become Kritagya, which means we become grateful to the spiritual master. And gratitude always means we become indebted. For example, if something I receive, I feel so grateful, I become indebted to this personality. And we are in debt of our spiritual master, of our acharyas. So it's not just with my spiritual master, with just Srila Prabhupada, but we are actually indebted to the whole Guru Parampara, and all the way going up to Krishna. So we know that there are the Mahajanas, and then there is a disciplic succession. And in the Bhagavad Gita, Krishna describes the whole disciplic succession, which begins actually from Krishna himself. So we actually have a debt to the entire Guru Parampara going all the way back to the Lord. So it's a very big burden, you know. But it's like a transcendental burden. And this burden becomes the stimulation for a devotee to preach. So what happens is, when you take a loan from a bank, you are in debt, isn't it? It's called a debt or debt. So when you are in debt of a bank, you keep paying the bank, and ultimately the balance becomes zero. So you don't have any more debt, you're free, debt free. But in the spiritual tradition, you are in debt. The more you express your debt, the more indebted you become. So the debt only grows. You know, so in the material world, the debt becomes small, but in the spiritual world, the debt becomes big. It's the reverse. Also, in the Bhagavad Gita, Krishna says how the material world is a perverted reflection, right? So he describes a banyan tree with its roots upwards. So everything in the material world is the opposite. So with that understanding, we can understand that in the material world, the debt becomes zero when we pay it back. But in the spiritual world, the more you try to pay back, the more big your debt becomes. And the debt becomes so big that devotee is compelled to go out and preach. And we share the debt. For example, today I go out and I preach, I make another person also indebted. It's like a disease you spread. So when you go out and you preach, you share your debt with another person and the debt grows. You know, for example, I'll take a loan from a money lender and then I go introduce my friend. So I'm kind of also growing the debt. Similarly, when we preach outside, we go out and we preach, being so grateful and obliged by the mercy of the spiritual master, a causeless mercy that we've been given. We go out and we preach and we increase our debt by preaching. And then the more person we add to it, the debt increases more and more. And it is so beautiful that this increase of debt is actually which will take us back home, back to Godhead. You know why? Anybody has any guesses why? If we increase our debt to the spiritual master and to the Lord, we can go back to Godhead. And why it is very important to, like, what happens in our identity? Any guesses? Yeah, we become the property. Like if you, for example, you mortgage your house and you take debt, you know, so your house is indebted to this bank, let's say. And when you cannot pay, what happens? The house becomes the property of the bank. So similarly, if we grow our debt and we become so indebted and we also make other people indebted, and the debt grows and grows, it grows so much that it consumes our whole existence and we become the property of the Lord. So it's actually so beautiful because at the end of the day, as devotees, the very aim and goal of our life is to become the property of the Lord, you know. And that's the best, I mean, that's what the gopis wanted. And the beautiful reciprocation is that when you become the property of the Lord feels so grateful because He's so kind that He makes Himself your property. So it's such, like spiritual world, it's so amazing. It's so much in contrast to the material world. Because in the material world, if you, let's say a boyfriend and a girlfriend, you feel so indebted and you feel like, you know, I'm the property of my husband or something. The other person says, yeah, I'm your husband, you know. But in spiritual world, it's so sweet. You tell Krishna, I'm your property. Krishna feels, he's so soft-hearted. He tells you back, I'm your property. That's how sweet spiritual relationships are. And that's why actually spiritual kingdom is this kingdom of so much security. Because there is nobody trying to exploit you there. Because if you love, the other person thinks how to love you back even more. And that's why when we suffer in this material world, we have to understand that's why we don't belong here, you know. That's why we realize actually it's just so disgusting to be here. Because we know something different. Originally, like Narada Muni explained to King Prachina Barhi the constitutional position of the Lord and the living entity. And our constitutional position is to be the property of the Lord. And in the spiritual world, it's so beautiful that when you become the property of the Lord wants to become your property. You know, and that's the reciprocation even between the gopis and the Lord. That the gopis express to Krishna that, you know, you are my everything, I've given up everything for you. And the Lord then says, after all that you... And what did the gopis do? They just unconditionally loved Krishna. And not even as God, just as Krishna, just for how... You know, sometimes we want people to accept us as we are. We want to be accepted just like we are. And that's what the gopis did with Krishna. Just accepted him without any challenges, without any criticism, just for who he was. And of course, he's the Supreme Personality of Godhead. But that itself was so attractive to the Lord. The Lord said, after the way you've loved me, I don't know how to repay it. And then you know what? To repay this debt, he appeared as Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. Because the gopis, they were crying in separation. They experienced so much love and they were chanting the holy name of the Lord all the time in remembrance of him. And to pay the debt of the gopis, the Lord appeared as Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. And took sannyas, yes. So that is why he renounced everything and just concentrated on chanting the holy name of the Lord. So it's very beautiful how the story of death begins all the way in Srimad Bhagavatam and ultimately culminates in Sri Chaitanya Charitamrita. So it's very beautiful how to reciprocate the love of the gopis, it was not just Krishna said, oh wow, it's wonderful, end of story. No, the Lord feels so deeply touched by our unconditional love if we are able to provide that to Him, that He takes birth as Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu and takes sannyas, the life of ultimate celibacy and a lot of austerity, to reciprocate that love, to honor that love, to give show and give that respect. So we see as we are coming to the end of our time assigned for Srimad Bhagavatam discussions, it's very beautiful actually how the spiritual master, just to summarize, we discussed how Narad Muni was of course a resident of Siddha Loka, and Srila Prabhupada opens up this vision of these planetary systems to us. And Narada Muni, the transcendental spaceman, the spiritual master of Prachina Barhi, and Canto 4 being many examples of guru-disciple relationships, really transforms the heart of Prachina Barhi and then gives him the instructions and invitation to go back to Siddha Loka, the planet of Narada Muni. And therefore we also individually have the invitation from our spiritual masters, from Srila Prabhupada, to follow their footsteps and go back to where they are. And if they are in some other planet preaching, that's where we go. And we also discussed that how we are indebted to our spiritual master, and the debt keeps growing. It doesn't go down like the material world. In the spiritual kingdom, we are happy to grow our debts. And then ultimately we discussed how Krishna has this debt to the gopis, and then he repaid the debt, or he endeavored to repay the debt to the gopis, appearing as Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu and taking the order of sannyas, and therefore clearly also emphasizing the importance of preaching. So therefore, to fully become the property of Krishna, we have to preach and follow in the footsteps of our spiritual masters. Grantaraj Srimad Bhagavatam ki jai, Srila Prabhupada ki jai, Ananta Koti Vaishnavinda ki jai, Gaur Premanandi, Hari Hari Bol. So any comments, thoughts, questions? Okay, thank you very much for your kind presence and attention. So we will end here. Srila Prabhupada ki jai, Gaur Premanandi, Hari Hari Bol. Should I leave her here? You will take her with you? Should I leave her here? Or should I put her there?
No, yeah, I'll take her.
Then I will go to her. Then you will be in the Tulasi room. I can find you there.
Yeah.
Okay. I got it. I switch up the light. It's okay.
Yes.
Krishna. Hare Krishna. Krishna Krishna. Hare Krishna. Hare Krishna. Krishna Krishna. Krishna Krishna. Hare Krishna Krishna Krishna. Hare Krishna. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna. Krishna Krishna. Hare Krishna, Krishna. Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare. Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare. Ram Krishna Krishna. Hare Krishna. Hare Krishna. Hare Krishna. Krishna Krishna Hare Hare Krishna. Krishna Krishna. Krishna Krishna Hare 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 Krishna 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 Krishna. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Krishna Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna. Hare Krishna, Krishna. Krishna, Krishna. Hare Krishna, Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna. Hare Krishna, Krishna, Krishna.